Rain hammered against the windows of a small downtown cafe in Chicago, blurring the view of honking cars and gray sidewalks. Inside, warmth lingered in the air, the smell of brewed coffee, toasted bagels, and faint jazz humming through the speakers. At a corner booth sat Emily Carter, a single mother in her early 30s. Her coat was damp, her hair pulled into a loose bun, and her tired eyes followed the two little faces across from her. Her children, Lily, age 7, and Ben, age 5. In front of them sat a single plate of spaghetti, steaming, half-portioned, and the only thing she could afford that day. Emily twirled the noodles with a fork and split them carefully into two smaller plates, pretending it was a feast. "Okay, kiddos," she said with a soft smile. "Eat up before it gets cold." Lily frowned. "Mommy, aren't you going to eat?" Emily smiled, shaking her head. "I'm not hungry, sweetheart. I had something earlier." It was a lie. She hadn't eaten since last night, saving every dollar she had for her kids' meal. From the far side of the cafe, a man sat alone, Ethan Reeves, dressed in a tailored navy suit that looked far too polished for this humble place. He wasn't there for business meetings or media attention. Today, he'd come for quiet, trying to escape the noise of his billion-dollar empire. But what caught his attention wasn't the rain or the aroma of coffee. It was that small family at the corner. He watched silently as Emily laughed softly when Ben dropped his fork, as she wiped his chin with a napkin, as she pushed the plate closer toward them with a tenderness that made something inside him twist. He had grown up poor himself. His mother used to do the same thing, pretending she was full so he could eat more. He thought he had buried that memory years ago, under layers of success and steel. Now watching Emily, he felt that long-frozen ache return. She wasn't begging. She wasn't complaining. She was simply surviving, with dignity, love, and quiet strength. Ethan set his coffee cup down slowly, his chest tightening. In that moment, the billionaire realized something powerful. No amount of money could buy the kind of grace that woman carried in her eyes. And somehow, he knew this wasn't the last time their paths would cross. Ethan Reeves sat quietly in his corner booth, half hidden behind his newspaper and a cooling cup of black coffee. But his eyes weren't on the print. They kept drifting, back to the young mother and her children across the cafe. Every gesture from Emily Carter told a story of quiet struggle. Her smile never faltered, yet it carried the weight of exhaustion that only someone fighting to stay strong for others could understand. The waitress, a cheerful woman named Doris, approached Emily's table with a polite smile, holding the check in her hand. Emily looked up, instinctively bracing herself. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Doris said softly, lowering her voice. "The kids' meal deal doesn't include an extra drink or side, so the total's a bit higher." Emily's shoulders sagged just slightly. "Oh, okay," she murmured, glancing into her worn-out wallet. She pulled out a few crumpled bills and some coins. "Could you maybe take off the coffee?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll just pay for the kids' food." Doris nodded with sympathy and took the cup away. Ethan's jaw tightened. That cup of coffee probably cost $3, something he would have forgotten about in seconds. Yet to her, it was a small sacrifice that mattered. He felt his stomach knot. He motioned discreetly for Doris to come over to his table. "Put their bill on mine," he said quietly. "Everything they ordered? And add dessert for the kids? Something nice." Her eyes widened. "You sure, sir?" "Absolutely," Ethan said firmly. "But don't tell her who it's from." Moments later, Doris returned to Emily's table with 2 plates of chocolate cake topped with whipped cream. The children gasped, their faces lighting up in pure joy. "But we didn't order this," Emily said, confused. "It's already paid for," Doris said, smiling softly. "Enjoy." Emily blinked, stunned. Her eyes darted around the cafe, searching for whoever had done such a kind thing, but no one met her gaze. Across the room, Ethan kept his head down, pretending to scroll through his phone, though his heart felt strangely heavy and full at once. As Lily giggled and smeared frosting across her cheek, Ethan couldn't help but smile faintly. For a man who owned skyscrapers and luxury estates, it was the simplest act, a few slices of cake, that suddenly felt like the most meaningful investment he'd ever made. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle by the time. Emily helped her kids bundle up in their worn jackets. Lily tugged her brother's hood into place while Emily carefully folded the receipt she hadn't even needed to pay. Whoever had paid for their meal, that kind stranger, had given her more than just food. They had given her a moment of kindness, a reminder that good people still existed. She guided her children toward the door, balancing Ben's small backpack on her shoulder. As she reached for the handle, someone on the other side opened it at the same time. The door swung wide, and there he was, tall, composed, and carrying an umbrella in one hand. "Ethan Reeves. After you," he said with a polite smile. "Thank you," Emily replied, stepping through with the kids. For a moment, their eyes met. His gaze was kind, steady, warm, but there was something about it that made her heart flutter nervously. "Rough weather out there," Ethan said, glancing at the gray skies. "Yeah," she said, pulling Ben's hand closer. "But at least it's just rain. We've seen worse days." He hesitated before speaking again. I saw you earlier," he admitted carefully. "You were sharing your meal with your kids. You're a good mom." Emily's cheeks flushed, a mix of surprise and embarrassment. "You were watching us?" "Not intentionally," Ethan said quickly. "I just happened to notice. You reminded me of someone. My mother, actually." Something in his tone was genuine, almost wistful. Emily softened a little, though she kept her guard up. "Well, thank you. Sometimes you just do what you have to do, right?" He nodded slowly, the truth of her words striking him deeper than she knew. There was no self-pity in her voice, only quiet determination, the kind of strength money could never buy. "Would you let me buy you dinner sometime?" he asked almost impulsively. "You and your kids, I mean." Emily smiled faintly, shaking her head. "That's kind, but we'll be okay. We always are." Before he could respond, Lily tugged her mom's hand. "Mommy, come on!" Ethan watched them disappear into the fading rain, a small family, walking away with nothing but love, holding them together. And for the first time in years, the billionaire felt something he hadn't in a long time. Purpose. That night, Ethan Reeves couldn't shake the image of the woman and her children from his mind. He lay awake in his penthouse overlooking downtown Chicago, the city lights glowing beneath him, the skyline dotted with the towers his company had built. Yet none of it brought him peace. The laughter of those two children, the quiet sacrifice in their mother's eyes, it haunted him. He finally sat up, tossing his tablet onto the nightstand. "Who is she?" he muttered under his breath. It wasn't idle curiosity. It was a deep, gnawing sense of responsibility, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. By morning, he had already called his assistant, Laura, a sharp and loyal woman who had worked for him for nearly a decade. "Laura," he said over the phone, "I need you to find someone." There was a brief pause. "A business lead or a personal inquiry, sir?" Ethan hesitated. "Personal. Her name's Emily Carter. She lives somewhere near the west side. Single mother, 2 kids. She was at Bean Street Cafe yesterday afternoon." Laura didn't question him. She knew better than to ask. "I'll handle it discreetly." By noon, a file was sitting on his desk. Ethan opened it slowly, scanning the details. Emily Carter, age 31. Works part-time as a cashier at a grocery store. Lives in an old apartment complex scheduled for demolition. A property, he realized with shock, owned by his own company. He froze, staring at the paper. "She's one of mine." His chest tightened as he read the eviction notice date, printed in red at the bottom of the page, 2 weeks away. The building was part of a redevelopment plan, one of his newest projects. In business terms, it was progress, but now it looked like cruelty. Without hesitation, Ethan grabbed his phone. "Laura," he said firmly, "put a hold on the demolition of the Westwood apartments." "Sir, that site is already cleared with the city," she reminded him. "Delaying it could cost—" "I don't care what it costs," Ethan interrupted. "No one loses their home until I find a better solution. And make sure every family there is taken care of, especially Emily Carter and her kids." As he hung up, Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring out the window at the city he'd built. For the first time, he realized that maybe true success wasn't measured in profits, but in people. A week later, the morning sun poured over the little neighborhood on Chicago's west side, the one that was supposed to be demolished. Residents had gathered around the small cafe on the corner, murmuring with curiosity. Flyers had gone out inviting everyone to a community announcement, hosted by the property developers. No one knew what to expect. Some feared it was bad news, another notice to pack up and leave. Emily Carter arrived, holding Lily's and Ben's hands tightly. She had spent the entire week worrying about what she'd do once their apartment was gone. Rent elsewhere was impossible. She'd even looked into shelters, though she tried to hide that from the kids. When they entered the cafe, Emily froze. At the front of the room, standing near a podium, was the same man who had opened the door for her that rainy evening, Ethan Reeves. Only now, he wasn't just the kind stranger from the cafe. He was the Ethan Reeves, the billionaire CEO of Reeves Development Group, the very company planning the demolition. Whispers swept through the crowd as cameras flashed and reporters scribbled notes. Emily felt her stomach twist. What is he doing here? Ethan stepped up to the microphone, his expression calm but sincere. Good morning, everyone, he began. My name is Ethan Reeves, and I'm here today not as a businessman, but as someone who owes this neighborhood more than I realized. The room fell silent. Even the kids stopped fidgeting. Ethan took a breath and continued. Last week I met someone right here, a mother who shared one meal with her children and smiled as if she had the world. She reminded me of what truly matters. I learned that her building, your building, was one of mine. And I couldn't let that be the end of her story or yours. A ripple of emotion moved through the crowd. Emily's eyes widened, her heart pounding in disbelief. That's why, Ethan said firmly. The Westwood Apartments project is officially canceled. Instead, my company will rebuild this neighborhood. Every family will receive a new, fully furnished home at no cost. Because no hardworking parents should ever worry about giving their kids a roof over their heads. The room erupted in applause, cheers, and tears. Cameras flashed. Emily stood frozen, overwhelmed. Ethan met her gaze through the crowd, offering a soft, knowing smile, one that said, You changed me too. 3 months later, the sun rose over a transformed block of Chicago's West Side, where broken windows and peeling paint once stood. Rows of freshly painted apartments gleamed in soft morning light. The air carried the scent of new wood and blooming flowers. Hope rebuilt from the ground up. Inside one of those brand new apartments, Emily Carter stood in the living room, tears shining in her eyes. The walls were a warm cream color, the kitchen fully stocked, and sunlight streamed through spotless windows. Her children raced across the hardwood floor, their laughter echoing in every corner. Mommy, we have our own rooms, Lily shouted, twirling in excitement. And look, Ben added, pointing at a colorful set of bunk beds. It's like a castle. Emily laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. She touched the counter, the walls, the window frames, almost not believing any of it was real. For so long, life had been about survival, paycheck to paycheck, day by day. But now, it felt like she could breathe again. A knock sounded at the door. She wiped her eyes quickly before opening it. There stood Ethan Reeves holding a small box tied with a ribbon. His usual suit was replaced by a casual shirt and jeans, but his calm, confident presence was unmistakable. Housewarming gift, he said with a smile, handing her the box. Inside was a simple note and a set of keys engraved with the initials. ERG, Reeves Giving Foundation. I didn't even know what to say when I saw your announcement, Emily said, voice trembling. You didn't have to do all this. Ethan's gaze softened. Maybe not. But I wanted to. You reminded me what real strength looks like. You gave me a reason to use what I have for something that matters. Her eyes filled again. You've changed our lives, Ethan. He smiled gently. You changed mine first. From behind her, the kids ran forward, hugging Ethan's legs. He chuckled, kneeling to meet their height. Hey, you two. Take care of your mom, okay? Outside, the sun broke fully through the clouds, casting golden light across the neighborhood. Emily stood in the doorway, watching Ethan walk away with the wind at his back, not as a billionaire, but as a man who finally understood that the greatest wealth was compassion. And for the first time in a long time, everything felt right.